Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Categorically Romance podcast. I am Bree, and today I am joined by someone we're so excited to finally have here, Author Frederick Smith, a journalist, academic, advocate, author. Welcome, Frederick. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited. My name is Frederick Smith. I use he, him pronouns, and by day, I work in higher education, student affairs at San Francisco State University. And by night, I am an author of LGBTQ romance novels. I'm primarily focusing on like Black and Latinx queer characters and set in Los Angeles. Outside of like that work, I used to work in journalism for a year or so right after undergraduate. And I think I have the same kind of interests as everyone else who listens. I read a lot. I try to fit in some writing time. I'm originally from Detroit, and I could go on and on and on talking about random stuff about me.
Yeah, okay. I have to find out, Detroit to you said San Francisco, right?
Correct.
Okay, because I read Bay Area on your website, and I'm like, okay, I've
Yeah.
never been to California, so I want to be sure.
Oh, okay.
Tell me about the culture. Was it a culture shock? How did you end up there? Because that's far from Detroit.
Oh, it's a long way, but I was one of those. I was one of those kids who grew up counting the falls and the winters, so I was going to get out of Detroit.
Okay.
So, as
Okay.
soon as I finished high school, I went away to undergrad at University of Missouri.
Right.
And,
I saw that too.
yes,
Columbia?
Missouri. Yeah, Missouri, Columbia.
That's like an hour from where I'm from. That's like an hour from my hometown.
Awesome. Yeah, and so I went there for the journalism school. At the time, they were the number one. They still may be number one journalism school in the country. And so I studied there, and then made a closer stint back to the Midwest. I went to Chicago for a couple years to go to grad school at Loyola in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that whole time was done, that's when I made the venture west. But I started out in Los Angeles first. And I was in Los Angeles for like 12, 15 years or so before making the move for a professional move to San Francisco. But all the moves that I've done have been primarily for either school or to work at a school. And
Okay.
So that's kind of my journey west.
Okay. First off,
Yes.
what did you think when you got to Missouri? Coming from Detroit to Columbia.
You know what? Missouri is physically beautiful. There's lots of farms and wonderful, nice, kind people there. It was culture shock for me, though, coming from Detroit. And it was my first time coming into contact with so much, a majority white like culture and place. Because, growing up in Detroit, it's 80, 90% Black. And all of my teachers, all of my doctors, post office, delivery people, everything were Black. And so that was my world. And so it was really a culture shock when I moved to Missouri as an 18-year-old undergrad. It's something I wouldn't recommend in the future. I wish I had gone to an HBCU for undergrad, a historically Black college and university for undergrad. But, that's hindsight. That's a lesson learned. If I ever have a family, that is definitely something that I will promote as a value to my own kids is, considering an HBCU for their undergrad career.
Do you remember like that moment where you were like, I'm not in Kansas anymore? Like, what the hell?
Well, I was literally just a hop skipping away from Kansas, and I haven't
You were
Kansas City. However, this is going to be so funny. It's so terrible. I look back at the memory now, and I should actually write something about this. The first time I tried to go get a haircut,
oh God,
and I went to the, and for the people who are listening to this, I'm African American, I'm Black, and Black hair, Black people, things like that. And I went to the campus haircut place, trying to get a haircut like I would get in Detroit, and it was a disaster.
Oh my gosh, I bet.
for the barber and for myself. And I'm like, this will be a funny story to write or to tell one day. But it's just one of those naive things, me being from Detroit.
You didn't know.
I didn't know. The poor haircut person did not know either. We're just both sitting there not knowing, and that just speaks to the ways in which we just don't know about a lot about each other. But I think things are changing a lot now, especially, with more people developing cultural competency, interests in people who are not like them. And then, also with the increased number of mixed race people in the US, I think there's definitely a lot more understanding, empathy, and willingness to learn and adapt today than it was back when I was an undergrad.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I haven't lived in Missouri now since I was a kid. I was thinking that the other day. I was like, I went home twice in 2022,
Okay.
and that was the most I had been home like that in a long time. And both times that I went, I was like, man, Missouri kind of feels like it's stuck back in time. Like the parts that I'm from, like I'm from Sedalia, so like an
Oh, I
hour-ish from
love Australia. Yeah.
yeah, like, really close to Columbia. I mean, my dad lives in Kansas City, and it's great. Um, but, like, just driving through there are still towns where I'm not gonna stop here for gas. Like, I think people don't realize, like, as a person of color, there are still places in the country where we're not gonna go, or you can't just go and get a haircut or go have someone wash your hair and know what to do? Like, that is still a very real thing.
Mhm. Very real. And I need to go back to Missouri one day. For many years, after I left, well, let me say this. I have not been back for many years for many personal reasons, some of which were illuminated when the football players went on strike there back in like
Mm,
2015, the whole um
yes.
some of the racial justice issues that were happening on the campus and everything. And so it was
Yes.
interesting to
Were
hear
you
that.
there then or no?
I was not there then, but when those football players then initiated, the rest of Black students to kind of,
It was
speak to the
awful.
power
Yeah.
there, I was like, wow, things have changed and things have not changed.
Mhm.
I think that's life everywhere. And so, I haven't been back, but at some point I need to go back to Mizzou because it's a part of my world and life and history, and it's not something that I can forget or just erase from my
Yeah.
life. So one day I'll go back. But I have an aunt who lives in Kansas City who I love dearly, and she lives on the Kansas City, Kansas side, I think.
Okay,
Some
okay.
sort of Olathe or something like that. So anyway.
And you said, like, at the time, it was, like, the number 1 school for journalism, so that's, like, a really awesome thing. How did you feel getting into it?
Absolutely. You know what? I loved the program, the journalism school program at Mizzou. It taught me a lot just in terms of, how to be a good, how to be a good reporter, how to be a good on air person, how to write well, how to ask questions that will elicit information, how to do research, how to understand and learn technology. It was a great training ground for me, and I'm forever grateful for the education I got at the Mizzou School of Journalism. And and I think that it also feeds into a lot of my personal interests now. At the time when I finished school, or when I started journalism school, I went because I thought I wanted to be like the next like Oprah, the next
Okay,
big
I was wondering, I'm like,
something like that.
what led us on this path of journalism? Like
Oh, it was definitely growing up watching people like Oprah, Gayle King, and
yes, okay.
other great TV people like that.
I
Um,
still wanna be Oprah.
I
I
like the
still wanna
Oprah
be
money, but no, no, but after a year of doing the on-air work, I realized that it wasn't my cup of tea, so to speak. The types of stories that I was getting assigned were not the type of stories that were fitting with like my spirit and my soul and what I thought was advancing life. Like I got assigned a lot of crime stories, child abuse stories, and things like that. And you know, like when I think a lot about my purpose in life and what's important to me, it's about enlightening people and learning and about helping people get to their next stage in life, which is what I hope I do in both my writing and in the work I do in higher education. And so, after about a year, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I went and talked to one of my mentors back at Missouri, who was one of my supervisors when I was an RA. And he was like, his name is Dean Anderson. And he was like, you know what, Fred, you were involved as an undergrad, as a tour guide leader. You did student government, you did all these creative writing things. You were like a very active student. You're like the kind of student that people who work at universities want. Have you thought about going to this as a profession? And, growing up, you never think you can work at a school other than being a teacher. You don't realize there's a whole out of class experience that students experience until you're in it. So I was like, I didn't know I could do this. So that's how I ended up in grad school at Chicago, studying a field called student affairs, higher education. And then that, again, like I shared earlier, that's what took me to Los Angeles for a professional position at Cal State LA. And the funny thing is I went to Cal State LA, not only for the professional position, where I ended up being the director of the cross-cultural centers there eventually. But I went to LA because I wanted to write for television. I grew up watching Young and the Restless and Bold and the Beautiful.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so this is how it parlayed into writing fiction. So, I go to LA, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this job at Cal State LA. I do it well. I can produce some great events. I brought a lot of speakers, films, panels, musicians, and things like that to the campus. And while I was getting connected with a lot of those artists, I was thinking, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to get on the Young and the Restless. How am I going to get to that writing team of Bold and the Beautiful? And so I ended up taking some writing classes across town at the UCLA Extension program. And
You
this
are
was
always in somebody's class, okay?
tell me
Like,
about
you've been doing a lot of
I'm a
school.
lifelong student, and I just love school. And actually, if you ask my parents, ask my family. My parents are no longer with us, but if you ask my family, they're like, "Oh, you've been reading since you were like 2 or 3 years old."
Oh,
But
yeah.
anyway, I ended up taking some classes at the UCLA Extension program for creative writing. Because I always followed this mantra of, if you want to do something in life, you have to be around the kind of people who are doing what you want to do. And so started taking some creative writing classes with an instructor named Carrie Madden, and she writes children's books. She's based in Los Angeles and in Tennessee right now, both places. Took her class, started writing these short stories about my lived experience as a Black gay person in Los Angeles. And actually, I think the first chapter of my first novel, which is called Down for Whatever, Carrie Madden was a wonderful instructor. Loved my work about, my writing about Black and Latinx gay people in Los Angeles. And she was like, have you ever thought about maybe turning this into something longer? And I was like, not really, but do you think? And she's like, oh, you've got potential. And so I ended up, workshopping or writing a chapter for each week's class that would eventually become what was my first novel, Down for Whatever.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that novel is about four friends. So kind of think about Waiting to Exhale formula. Four friends looking for love in all the wrong places. But imagine them being Black or Latinx, living in LA, being in their 20s and 30s, and just all the fun mistakes that people make in their 20s and 30s when they're, looking for Mr., Ms., Mix Right, or whatever. And so after the class was over, Carrie Madden invited me to join her writers group.
Oh
And I
my
was like,
gosh,
no
okay.
way.
Yeah.
And I can't remember everyone who was in the group, but I think there was someone in the group who actually wrote a novel that was an Oprah pick. And I'm like, why am I in this group? The Black boy from Detroit and all these kind of middle-aged white women, but they were so cool and so kind, and they were very open and welcoming to my work, and they invited me in, and they would workshop my chapters for Down for Whatever, and everything. But the story and the journey to publishing came because there was a person in that group named Denise Hamilton. Denise Hamilton is a mystery writer set in LA who used to write for the Los Angeles Times, but her mystery novels are set all around the LA area. And one of her novels was, how it goes from the transition from hardback to softcover. So she was celebrating the release of one of her novels turning into softcover. She was at a party in New York City with her publisher. And somehow, I don't know how, why, who, she started talking about me at this party. And she started talking about me being in the writers group, started talking about, my little pages. I was workshopping with them about these Black and Latinx gay characters in LA. And someone overheard her who ended up contacting me. His name was John Scanamilio. He was a senior editor or editor in chief at Kensington Books. Um, and after he heard about me, he emailed me that Monday. I'll
Oh
never
my
forget it. It was like that
gosh.
Monday after President's Day weekend back in like 2005, 2000, I think it was 2005, and emailed me and said, "Hey, I heard about you from Denise Hamilton. Would you mind sending me your finished novel so I can take a look at it?" And so, that was back in the days when it wasn't all on email. You had to physically print the pages and send them to New York and everything. So I send this 300-page manuscript to him, and probably within 2 weeks, it skipped the slush pile and made it to him. And he emailed, called me, and said, "We'd like to have you on for a couple of books with Kensington Books."
Oh my gosh. Oh
Wow.
my
So talk about, well, one, I think about luck, but I also think about, the power of at least believing in yourself, the power
yeah.
of when you're nice to people. You never know when people are going to, when and how and who are going to say things about you. And so, I always think it just pays to be kind and nice to people and not a
Oh my
pain,
god,
things like that.
yes, yes,
Because
I
if
believe
she hadn't
that.
talked about me at this party, I never would be in publishing and writing today. So, I did 2 books for Kensington. Down for Whatever was my first novel. Again, the 4 best friends in LA looking for love in all the wrong places. And then my second novel with Kensington is called Right Side of the Wrong Bed. And it's a total opposites attract, different in life, all kinds of ways. Why are they together? They should not be together. All their friends say it wouldn't last. I kind of joke and call it like the Bobby and Whitney syndrome. Like everyone around sees the problems except for the 2 people in it.
Accept them.
It was so romantic and so cute seeing this mismatched couple try to make it work, and through all the stops and starts and the ups and downs and everything. And that novel got nominated for a Lambda Literary Award in the romance category in it was either 2008 or 2009. I can't remember the exact year. I think I would have won if I had known at the time that while I was writing a romance, I did not know the formula for romance, and especially that whole happily ever after and happy for now part of the formula.
Okay,
If I had
okay.
known that, I would have. I'm pretty sure I would have won that year. But I love that novel, and I would suggest if anyone wants to start reading anything by me, my first 2 novels, Down for Whatever, Right Side of the Wrong Bed with Kensington, were great. And so
So,
then
like,
from
you
yeah,
well,
go ahead.
I wanna pause you and ask you, like, so take us because 'cause you've been reading for forever. What did you grow up reading? Like, what were your influences to where when you were in that moment and you started writing, like, down for whatever came to you? I mean, obviously, like, you're in LA and you're around all these wonderful people, and it's like, I'm writing what I see and, parts of my experiences or whatever, like, where did it come from? Like, tell us where it came from. Like, what had you been reading?
So, like I shared, I've been reading since I was 2, 3 years old, or so my
Mhm.
family says. But I also had the knack or the interest in creative writing when I was in elementary school in Detroit public schools. And so I would enter writing contests. I would
Mhm.
write cheesy bad poetry. I still have some of the
I
like
love cheesy bad poetry. I love it.
I still have some of the anthologies. At the time, Detroit Public Schools used to put together anthologies to foster creativity in kids there. And so, I would enter short stories and poetry and things like that. Some of it so cheesy and so bad when I look at my third and fourth grade self. However, it's wonderful to think about the memories and everything. So, I've been creative writing since, elementary school, did school newspaper in high school, continued with some of my creative writing in continued with some of my creative writing in high school and grad school and things like that. And so, yeah, it's totally been since childhood that, I had this knack for writing and for journalism and things like that. So that's kind of where it came from. But, as an adult, I think even though I had pursued this career in higher education and student affairs, I've always kept my creative knack, my creativity, whether it's like producing events, being connected to arts communities, writing communities. I've always had that pull, in my life, and I still feel it to this day in terms of, I love and I'm passionate about like doing diversity inclusion work for universities and events and things like that. And I'm still equally passionate about writing and creative writing. I just wish there was enough time in the day so I could do both to 150% like Virgo me wants to do.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was reading your website, and you mentioned, Carrie Madden on your website, you said that she noticed something in your stories, like, you had given a distinct voice to each of the characters,
Mhm,
um, and I find that so admirable, like, as somebody who wants to write, I think that's the part that I struggle with the most, just because 'cause I'm like, I've been a stay-at-home mom since, like, 2019. Before that, I was in the military, and I'm just like, I don't really know what my voice is. So, like,
mhm.
can you talk a little bit to that? Like, to anybody struggling to figure out their voice?
Yeah, that is a great question, and it's something even today that I struggle with. Um, so, like, for me, and I know like people go back and forth with this. I love first person novels, and I think I've heard you all talk about it on the podcast before, and I've heard it on other podcasts. You know, this debate between first person and third person in terms
Mhm.
of writing. And you know, what I'm currently working on right now is third person, and I'm struggling, and I think it's because I'm more comfortable writing in first person. I feel like
Okay.
that's where the voice comes from because I am writing from the perspective of the person telling the story. And so in first person, you know, I feel like I have a strong mastery of the character's voice or the characters' voices in first person and can be a lot more creative around what they would say, do, be, how they would interact with other characters, etc., how they would look at love and romance. What I'm currently working on now is in third person, and I'm doing it because, you know, and I probably shouldn't listen to people. That's what I say to any aspiring authors: listen to your own voice and what you're comfortable with. I started listening and watching some threads on first person, third person, and you know, hearing some people say, "Well, I only like novels that are written in third person because da 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 da. It's detached and you know, it's da da da." And so I was like, okay, let me try this third person, you know,
Oh
kind of
gosh.
for a professional challenge, for
Yeah.
a writing challenge. And I was going to tell you, I am struggling with this project, and I have to get it turned in by July this year, July 2023. And so I think I may go back and revise it and turn it back into first person because that's where I feel most comfortable. And so
Yeah.
this kind of fits in with the kind of reading that I used to do when I was growing up. You know, I used to sneak into my mom's bookshelves, like I think many of us do, and I've heard on your podcast and heard on other podcasts before. I used to sneak in. I remember the first book I snuck and read was like this. It was called Scruples. I think it's Judith Krantz. I'm not sure, and I shouldn't have been reading that as a kid. I earmarked and bookmarked the parts I wasn't supposed to read, being a curious little you know,
Yeah,
teenager.
like, we're gonna reread this.
Mhm, mhm. And you know what parts I'm talking about too.
Yes.
But then later, you know, with that big boom of Black authors in the '90s after Terry McMillan, you know, kind of, you know, busted down a lot of doors for
Mhm.
a lot of Black writers to follow in her coattails. So like Terry McMillan's like one of the first who I read, and you know, most of her novels are written in first person, and that's where I modeled my down for whatever from. I'm like, I like this. I like where I'm hearing the person tell me their story instead of some anonymous person telling someone else's story. And so Terry McMillan's novels really resonated with me. Lynn Harris is another person who I grew up reading and listening to, and reading his novels that are focused on Black and queer characters in the U.S. South. An author named Pearl Clegg, who is, you know, and although they are not romance novelists per se, they do have elements of romance in all of their novels. Pearl Clegg is an author set in Atlanta, and I just absolutely love everything she writes, whether it's first person or third person. Just the way with words, nice short chapters, nice cliffhangers at the end of each chapter. Um, So those are some of the people who I grew up reading and who were kind of my literary role models, even though I never really met any of them. I might have gone to a few events. And actually, I did get to meet Pearl Clegg once. I got to bring her to Cal State LA, and that was like a dream come
Oh
true.
my gosh, yeah.
Oh, such a dream come true. And so, yeah, those are some of the people who I, grew up reading and things like that. But my transition into, romance novels really came during the pandemic, starting around 3 years ago. And that was when, all of the events went 100% virtual, and all the bookstores were offering events with authors all over the country that I could just watch from the comfort of my apartment and my laptop. And so that's when I discovered so many authors that I hadn't even known about because I could go to all these free events. And so, people like Rebecca Weatherspoon and,
Yes.
Fiona Zed. And then, I got into, some of the novels of I'm gonna blank on all the names. From New Orleans,
Pharaoh Sean.
Farrah Rashan, but there's another Farrah too.
Oh, yeah,
I'm blanking on it right now too. And then Jasmine Guillory and oh, just all these authors who were doing these great Alyssa Cole. And so that really opened up my eyes, one, more to the genre of romance and to the great work that romance novelists are doing, and especially to keep the book industry going during pandemic. And also, it gave me the opportunity to kind of learn more about the formula. I read this wonderful quick book, and I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but it's a wonderful book that just it's Romancing the Beat.
Romancing the Beats. Gwen Hayes, I think, is
Yes,
the author,
yes,
yeah.
yes. And so, just learning that there is a formula. There are expectations that readers have. If you're going to step into the romance pool, you must not violate them. And so, all of that really that transition into really enjoying and appreciating and loving romance and the romance industry happened during the pandemic. And ever since then, I've been hooked. And with all of those events, ended up buying books at almost every event. So like the top of my nightstand and my dresser in my bedroom is piled with pandemic book purchases, most of which are still to be read. But, I think it's important for us as authors, as podcast listeners, as writers, to support each other and to purchase, even if you don't get a chance to read or listen to it, on audiobook. To me, it's so important to support authors with our purchases. Because everyone needs it and we're all each other's cheerleaders, or at least we should be. And to me, that's really important.
So at what point, okay, so all of this is just fantastic. Like, so your book was nominated. I believe, like you believe, like if it had that like romance formula, you were gonna win. Was that when did you realize like that's the path you want your characters to take? You want it to be a happy ever after. It's so weird because it's like, well, what did they consider your books before? you know?
Yeah, I don't know, but I think the transition happened when I switched over to Bold Strokes Books, which is where I am right now. Bold Strokes Books is a mid-sized publisher based in New York area, and they focus primarily on LGBTQIA plus literature. And so it's wonderfully supportive. It feels like you're part of like a writers group because all the authors support each other. We support each other's events, really personable, editing and cover selections and choices and things like that. And I think it was my transition to Bold Strokes Books and with my first novel with them, Play It Forward, where I really, it just cemented in me happy ending romance. People want that journey of people who maybe not supposed to be together, but they end up together. And so my first novel with Bold Strokes Books, Play It Forward, focuses on a professional basketball player and a community activist who's running this organization in LA that's like serving, gay homeless youth. again, two opposites who never will probably have ever met, but the main characters come together because of a speech that the basketball player gave for the organization, and it was love at first sight from there, and the ups and downs and trials and tribulations of these two black men trying to find each other and become one with each other and everything. And so, yeah, it was the transition of Bold Strokes books that really cemented in me that the path I want to go on is, the tradition of romance novels, romance writing, and things like that.
It feels like we're in this moment where romance readers are craving LGBTQ plus like romance novels more than ever. But then I also feel like they've always been around, you know? Like
Yeah.
as a writer, how do you feel? Like, does it feel like it's having a moment? Does it feel like these novels have always been around? People have always wanted to read it. Like, what does it feel like for you? Because I do feel like traditional wise, I feel like we are seeing more than I haven't been reading romance that long, but I feel like I do see them more on the shelf at like a Barnes and Noble than I would
Uh,
have a couple of years ago. Like, how do you feel?
Yeah, so another great question, and I was just talking about this with a writer friend this weekend, and we were talking about, well, actually, she kind of posed the same question to me, like Fred, you have this backlist with these, five novels, and you've been doing this for a minute, and like, what do you think about, like all the hype that goes to the brand new authors that get, you know, hyped and placed front and center at Barnes and Noble or on the websites or the book talk people and things like that. And I'm like, well, I would never take away from anyone's success or speak down to people's success or the support they get for being a debut or a new author and things like that. I think that's wonderful. And at the same time, I also want to make sure that people know that there are authors who have been doing contemporary LGBTQ literature, writing about Black and Brown characters for a while. Like I grew up with writers like Rashid Darden and Brian Banks and Fiona Zed, who were doing this same kind of work, same path as me, and everything. And at the same time, I also love the fact that more LGBTQ novels and romance is like I guess mainstream. I don't know if mainstream is the word because our books are still being banned in a lot of places and everything.
Mhm.
But I love the fact that there's so much love and attention and promotion of new authors to the game. And I also would like to see the same kind of support happen to people who are, who have been doing this work all along as well.
So how did you find how did these authors and their books, because a lot of times, like, I know when I first started reading romance, it
Uh-huh.
took me, I mean, it took me a minute to, this is like the beginning of me getting a library card and getting on overdrive and all of it. Like, you hear so many stories of like people saying like they didn't see themselves. Like, the first time I saw a Black heroine on the cover of a book was Alyssa Cole. And I was like, what is
Yeah.
this? So for anybody that's listening who may be like, oh my gosh, he writes these books, he grew up reading these authors, and they may not see it. How did you find these authors in these books?
The very first one was Lynn Harris,
Uh-huh.
and it's so funny. Like my friends and I, who are readers, talk a lot about how we had to sneak them and read them because of the taboos of being seen with a book by, for, or about Black and gay characters. So we snuck and read them in our youth and things like that.
Do you
So
think it helped too, like growing up in Detroit, like in a predominantly Black city? Like, I went to high school, I lived in Memphis, and we
okay.
had an entire bookstore for urban lit, like that's what it was called at the time, and I loved it.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Like going to Black bookstores has always been a staple, a hobby, very important to me, both in terms of supporting the bookstores, supporting the authors who they promote, but they also help me discover people who I never knew about.
Mhm.
And so it was actually going to Black bookstores where I, first saw or learned about people like Lynn Harris, or there's this author named J. California Cooper who writes the best short stories and novels of all time, in my opinion. No, I wouldn't say of all time, but they're very great. But yeah, going to Black bookstores where I could see myself, where the salespeople really had a passion for and care about Black authors and about matching people to books that they think that they would like and
I
connect
love
with.
that.
Um,
Yeah.
like, like that's almost like, I mean, not to get religious, that's like doing the Lord's work when
It is.
you can
Okay.
match someone with a book that's going to change their life or help them see a different part of themselves. Like that is just
Yeah.
magic. And
A
so
bookseller who knows what you need, like, is
that,
just top tier. Like, obviously, they've read the book, they've spent
mhm.
some time getting to know you, and they're like, "I got you." Like, that's the best.
Exactly. And, you know, a quick tangent story. That's how I discovered this author I just told you about, J. California Cooper.
Mhm.
Had never heard of her before. And she's, unfortunately, she's passed a few years ago, but writes these wonderful, kind of folksy, everyday language kind of novels, first person, um, about old Black people living in the South. And some might center being enslaved. Many do not, but just some of the best lyrical writing I've ever read. And if it wasn't for going to a Black bookstore, I never would have discovered J. California Cooper. And so I have all of her short story collections, all of her novels. The other day, I was listening to another podcast which had a posthumous interview with her talking in her everyday language. And so, again, this just speaks to the power of bookstores, Black booksellers, librarians, getting to know the people who come to them, and really understanding and knowing, and also taking a chance on writers who go beyond the, you know, the centerpiece at the BNN or the centerpiece on the book talk, you know, tours and everything. People who are willing to take a deep dive. My heart goes out to them.
Well, what is something that you feel publishers, publishing could do right now to better inclusion and representation in fiction? Or is it, do we as bloggers and book reviewers, do we need to scream even louder that, like, we want more of this? Like, what do you think it is?
Yeah, you know, I think it's a little bit of both. So
Okay.
while I do appreciate, you know, the fact that, you know, for many publishers, they definitely push what they feel is important, what they feel is going to sell, what they feel, you know, is the it book at the moment and things like that. Love it, value it. It's very important because it pulls people in to the genre in general. And I also think it's important for booksellers, readers, book talk people, bloggers to take a deeper dive, whether it's with the people who are recommending books to them, or even within themselves, just say, who am I not reading? That takes a lot of work. And I know sometimes people don't have the time to do the work to figure out, who do I not know? You know, who are writers of community XYZ? You know, who are some of the Native American writers I need to know about? Who are some of the Black or Latinx and queer authors that I need to know about, who I'm just not learning about? And even just going as you know, of course, you know, Google is easy and free, so there's no excuse not to go on Google and say Black queer authors,
Yeah.
Black queer romance, Latinx queer romance, and just to see what comes up. You know, I think that's the easy work, and then the hard work is making the commitment to say, you know what, at least one of my reads per month is going to be from a community or by an author of a community that I'm not necessarily a part of. I think that that is the important work that we all can do to make sure that we're putting a shine and a light on the diversity of writers and experiences that are out there, and everything. So those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah. It's almost like and this sounds really weird saying it, but dare to be different. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of these spaces, it's the same books recommended in a
Hello.
thousand different ways. And it's like, come on, be that person that talks about something that the rest of the girls aren't talking about.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's so funny. You know, a lot like on Instagram, for example. You know, I follow a lot of book people because I just like seeing what they're reading and stuff. And I'm like, wow. Like when I flip through the stories and things like that, it's like you can like. like clockwork, see the same 5 books on people's stories and web pages and TikToks and everything. And it's like, okay, I know we have the capacity to be more expansive than these 5 books. So why aren't we doing it? And that's the kind of work we need to do. And I think that ties into, as you joked earlier about me always being in school. I think that has just always been a part of me.
Hmm.
I've always been curious about what I don't know, and I think that also feeds into my reading and my book buying habits too. Is who do I not know? Who am I not reading? And it's important for me to know that. And kind of go beyond the surface and below the surface and everything. So
So tell me, like working in the higher ed space, I would just love to like have you had a moment, or I'm sure you've had hundreds of moments, but like that moment where you were like, I'm supposed to be here, you know? Have you had one of those?
I'm supposed to be in higher ed, or I'm supposed to be in both worlds.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like, maybe you had a conversation with a student and you thought it was just like, I'm just doing my
Oh,
job, and then, months later, it's like, "Hey, like, that talk we had that day really resonated with me."
okay. Yeah, exactly. Like, well, and I think that, again, that's why. So I grew up loving and respecting teachers. Both my parents expected it, my grandparents expected it. And so I just love teachers. Maybe that's why I'm in this field.
Mhm.
And so what's really interesting is that, you know, like you never, so this is what I say. We all have the capacity to be a role model to someone, whether we're doing it actively or even passively. None of us knows who's watching us, listening to us, learning from what we do and say. And I'm sure that people who are parents know this, are thinking about this every day with their families. Like, there are young people watching me all the time, and so what
Mhm.
I do matters. And we all have that capacity in our lives, no matter what we're doing. And so, yeah, there's many times, I hear from former students who are like, Fred, you're like, well, what I hear a lot is, Fred, you're the first Black professional in education I've ever had or known. I'm like, really? But then I have to keep remembering I'm in California. Population Black people is probably 5-6% here, if that.
Mhm.
And so, like, sometimes that takes me by surprise, the fact that someone has been watching me and listening, or someone will say, oh yeah, I learned how to do this event because of how I watched you plan events, or I learned how to write an email properly because of modeling what you did, or I learned a lot about my job search because of listening to you and taking your advice and things like that. Or I learned that I can have 2 careers. I can do my day job, what I really want to do, and at night I can do my creativity because you're showing me that it's possible by doing the work you do, at this university, and by
And
writing novels and
writing.
everything. And
Yeah.
so, I think the lesson here for everyone is that we all can be role models. People are always watching and listening and learning from us. And so, again, it goes back to that Denise Hamilton, Carrie Madden story that I told you earlier. It just pays to be kind and
Yeah.
helpful and, giving of yourself, and while also setting up boundaries, and, like sharing everything that you have that you can, because, we're it's the universe's anyway. I don't know. That's how I kind of look at life and things and everything. So yeah, I have, and speaking of former students, there's one who I've begun co-writing novels with. His name is Chaz Cruz. And we met when I was working at Cal State LA, and he came along as a student. He's since then graduated. He's actually has been in the field of higher ed, doing similar work as me. But about 5 years ago, I approached him. So Bold Strokes Books approached me. I took a little hiatus to go to a doctoral program. Look at me being in school and everything. And
On
so
brand for you, very
I
on brand.
went to, I was like, you know what? I think I want to do I think I want to get a doctorate. So I went to Loyola Marymount, got a doctorate in educational leadership for social justice. So took a break from professional novel writing for about 3-4 years. But as soon as I got that degree, Bold Strokes Books was knocking on my email saying, would you like to write another novel? We need another novel from you. And so it was at that time I thought Chaz and I were working together professionally at Cal State LA. And as soon as I got the email, I was like, Chaz, I got this email from Bold Strokes Books. They want another novel. And I turned to go and I go, because Chaz had always had an aspiration. Chaz was a wonderful poet, spoken word artist, and things like that. And I was like, let's co-write together. And I thought, one, it would give him a publishing cred with a major publisher, and two, just the experience of learning from me in terms of writing a novel and then actually doing it. So that's how we got into the co-writing piece and the co-writing act of doing our novels. In case you forgot, and busy ain't the half of it. And
I
it's
love
so
your titles. I love them.
and
I'm a title nerd. I love a good title.
thank you, thank you. And so that was a wonderful experience to co-write with someone, first of all. For secondly, for it to be someone who has totally become part of my inner circle, one of my closest friends, personally and professionally, and someone whose creativity and aesthetic I totally vibed with. And so we were great co-writing partners together on those two novels. In fact, now that I'm writing a solo novel in the third person, which I think I'm going back to first person on, in co-writing together, it was like automatic motivation,
Mhm.
because I didn't want to let him down. He
And
didn't want to
vice
let me
versa.
down.
Yeah.
And so, we would work together at there was a main library in West Hollywood, California. That's the gay neighborhood in LA area. And they have this beautiful library. We would just go to it on weekends, rent out one of the study rooms that overlooked, the hills and the mountains and everything. And we would just write together on our shared dock and everything. Beautiful process. It really pushed me to be not only a better writer, but a more organized writer, and especially on our second co-written novel together, Busy Ain't the Half of It, because at that point, that's when I made the transition from Los Angeles to San Francisco to a much higher level professional position at San Francisco State. And so my time was very limited. And so Chaz was like, Fred, we're going to get out that formula. We're going to put up some post-it notes. We're going to know who's doing what chapter. We're going to write the formula. We're going to get this done because I know that you have limited time, Fred. And so Chaz is a wonderful accountability partner, a great creative, and someone whose work I love. Right now he's transitioning into writing for television now and writing pilots and web series and things like that. And Chaz Cruz is a wonderful creative, and
We're rooting for you, Chaz.
we are rooting for Chaz. Yes.
I mean, so when okay, because y'all, the first one, so y'all were writing together.
Yes, we
Was
were.
it like you take a chapter, I take a chapter? Like,
Yeah.
okay,
So our formula was this. Both of our novels are told from the perspective of two different characters, and so we decided who would be lead on which character. And
okay,
so that helped out in terms of, and for the most part, we followed every other chapter was one of the main characters. And so, we were good with writing our solo if it was just that character. But when they had to interact with each other, that's when we would really, truly have to sit down and, Chaz would be like, oh, this person wouldn't talk like this, or, they would say this to each other. And so, it was a very collaborative process. And it was nice for us both to take a lead on a lead character instead of
okay.
us both trying to write for both characters and everything. And so I think that you asked about voice earlier. I think that helps in terms of defining the two voices of main characters. And it also helped just in terms of organization as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's do some round out questions. Some of
Okay.
them you've seen, some you may not. But
And,
I
uh,
told you.
and you know what? Those questions on my other laptops are going to be totally spontaneous.
Okay, good. That's even better.
Okay.
Okay, tell me something that you find yourself nostalgic for.
You know what? I'm really nostalgic for. It's gonna sound so cheesy, and I'm nostalgic for my parents. I lost both my parents recently, and so now it's just me and my sister. And I think a lot about our childhood. I think a lot about like lessons learned from my parents. They were wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people, and so I think a lot about them and what they tried to instill in my sister and me, and just really hoping that we're fulfilling their dreams and hopes, and everything. So I'm nostalgic for that. I'm nostalgic also for ice cream trucks and those hot summer days in Detroit and running down the street with $1 trying to get an ice cream
They
truck.
don't have ice
Ice
cream
cream.
trucks where you are?
No.
Oh my gosh.
I never saw one in Los Angeles, and I definitely have never seen
What
one in.
is going on in
Um,
California?
I don't know. I mean, maybe there are. I just haven't. Maybe I just haven't lived in neighborhoods that have. Because I've in California, I've been apartment living, not home living. So maybe it's different in residential neighborhoods.
Well, if
That
you come across one, I need to be
all
tagged in a
right.
photo of you in front of the ice cream
But what I'll tell
truck.
you, they do have out here are some really good food trucks and some really good, like after going out to the clubs, some really good hot dog carts and some really good, I guess they call them elotes. Those are the corns. Oh,
Mm, my
the most
sister loves a street corn.
yes, street vendors. Yes, 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 yes. And
So,
we
I
all
mean,
know
I guess
for
this is kind of I'll just throw this one in there too, like, do you the vibes from San Francisco versus LA, do you love it more or what? Like, are they
ooh,
totally different?
ooh, that's the $1,000,000 question. It'll get me in trouble if I say what I really think. But what I will say is, because I spent 10, 12, 15 years in Los Angeles. So that almost feels like home to me. I have so many great friends and memories and
Mhm.
lovers and past lovers and all that kind of stuff in LA. San Francisco was definitely a culture shock for me. One, because of the weather. Note to listeners, San Francisco is a cold city. So
Okay,
it'd
I
be
was wondering, I was like, what's the weather like? Okay, it's cold there.
probably always like in the 50s or 60s. Rarely
Really?
70 or 80. It's very rare to get a 70 or 80-degree day here, unless it's a heat
Interesting.
wave.
Okay.
LA is perpetually sunny and warm. That's one of the first differences I noticed. I was like, oh, wow, I get to wear fall clothes all year round. So that's a plus here. It's aesthetically beautiful in San Francisco. Um, Public transportation is very easy. It's a very walkable city. Los Angeles, you can get in your car and drive as far as you want, as fast as you want, and things like that. And I like that about LA. And LA just has a lot of connections for me.
Okay. Okay. All right. So if you decided you wanted takeout, where are you ordering from and what's your order?
I'm thinking about takeout right now. I love Chinese food. I love to order takeout Chinese food. And I like ordering, although my friends and I debate about the quality, I like takeout sushi too, if I
Mm,
don't have time to go to a restaurant.
okay. Okay. Tell me one TV show or film that you'll never stop watching.
There was a series that I binge. It only has 2 seasons out. It's called Blood and Water. It's on Netflix. It's a high school drama set in South Africa, and it's beautifully shot. The drama is high stakes and lies. There are 3 seasons. The third season I just binged about a month ago, and it is such a wonderful show, Blood and Water. And I'm looking for more. I can watch that show all day, every day. And then, like I joked earlier, why I came to LA to try to write for The Young and the Restless and Bold and the Beautiful,
Yes, you did.
habits I got into because of my grandma. But, yeah, Young and the Restless, Bold and the Beautiful, I can
Look,
keep up
I'm
with.
still shocked that Victor is still
Tell me
on
about
that
it.
show.
There's still victoring. Oh, and I have to also say Abbott Elementary.
Oh
I can
God,
watch
yes.
I can watch that all day, every day, and never get tired of it and get something new out of every episode.
Yes. I watched the episode. So I'm a really slow TV watcher, so I think I'm on season 1 still. And
Okay.
like I love Ava and I can't stand Ava at the same time. And I just finished the episode. It was the step show episode and I was like,
Yes, yes.
"Please tell me she didn't just ghost these girls." And then I was like, "Oh, okay, my heart goes out to her."
Yes. I know, I know. I can't wait till you get to season 2.
Oh, yeah, I just and
Okay.
Gregory is a genius character. He had this scene with pizza, and I'm like, how do you guys not know that this is Gregory's kind of identity here?
Exactly, and the way those eyes communicate so much.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So tell me, just off the top of your head, okay, you have the mixtape to your life. What are the top 3 songs that would be on it and what they say about you?
Ooh. Okay, okay. I love the song, this is gonna go old school, "Make It Happen" by Mariah Carey.
Oh, yeah.
It's on her second album. It might be on her first, but it's just such an inspirational song about just coming out of struggle and making it as a songwriter. And so I see that song as being very autobiographical about her. And I loved her book about her life, by the way. And so I would say Make It Happen by Mariah Carey. I also love the grandness of Ain't No Mountain High Enough by Diana Ross.
Hmm.
I talk about old school. I just love that big orchestra in the beginning and the way that she just talks the words instead of singing them until the very end at the crescendo.
When she
So,
starts belting out, ain't
yeah,
no like, oh my gosh, I still get chills.
absolutely. And then let's do something kind of current day, like Song of My Life. There's this singer named Cleo Soul who's from Britain, I think, like black British soul. I would say anything by Cleo Soul, Anita Baker, Whitney Houston. Um, those are some of the people that would be on my mixtape of my life.
Okay, tell me one of your last unput downable reads.
My last unput downable read. Oh my goodness. Okay, there's this book called Boys Come First by Aaron K. Foley.
Hmm.
And it's put and it's and I could not put it down. I actually blurbed it. Um, it is a novel about three black gay best friends in Detroit. And the author is from Detroit, now living in New York City. And wonderful book. Brings back so many childhood memories of growing up in Detroit. And then, of course, the three best friends, again, looking for love in all the wrong places. It reminds me a lot of kind of what inspired me to write Down for Whatever back when I first wrote that. But Boys Come First by Aaron K. Foley.
Hmm. What is something that anytime just brings you joy? Anytime it happens, brings you joy.
I have to say happy hour whenever work is
I
done.
love that.
Yeah, it brings me joy. I have to admit, like one of my best group of friends. One day I was walking randomly down Market Street in the Castro district here in San Francisco. That's the gay neighborhood in San Francisco. And I walk past this bar and I see a black bartender, and I was like, oh. That's very rare. You never see a black bartender in Castro. So I walked right in and introduced myself. His name is Jonathan, and now he's one of my best friends. And what's really
I
cool
love
about
that.
Jonathan is that he knows a lot of the servers and bartenders in the area. They've become friends. But, each bartender has like their own following. So we're almost like community. And we go wherever Jonathan is working, whatever his nights are. Of course, I can't go 4 nights a week, but, I can go Mondays and Thursdays to happy hour where Jonathan is working. And so we always have the best time with the community that Jonathan has created. And so I
You
look
are
forward to
living like a romance main character dream life here. I love
that.
that so
Except there's
much.
never enough time. And, I have to write at like 4 in the morning before my day job starts. And so I just wish there was more time. And I wish I had more energy after work to write. But, the time comes at like 4 in the morning. I can do a couple hours until about 6:30 when I have to start getting ready for my day job.
Okay, okay. I meant to ask, like, how do you balance work life and writing life? So morning is it for you? I'm a morning person too. I get a lot
Yeah.
of done before 6 o'clock a.m.
Oh, absolutely. Because, I joke and call it the quiet hours because in general, there's no emails coming.
It's so
There's no text
peaceful.
coming at that hours, except the only thing is, living on the West Coast, I'm still part of my Detroit and East Coast family's family chat on text. And so they start texting around 7:30 their time, which is 4:30 my time. And so, but you know what? I am not leaving that group chat because that's what keeps me connected to my family. So
Yeah.
I don't care that the texts come in, while I'm doing my writing. But yeah, that's my best time, the morning hours. And then, of course, on the weekends, I spend a significant amount of time after I've done my chores, groceries, laundry, cleaning, doing my writing then.
Well, you've shared that your current work in progress, you're gonna go back and rewrite it in first person, which I feel like you should do.
I
Can
think
you
so.
tell us anything about the book?
So it's tentatively titled One and Done. And it's a romance. It's let's just use that old cliche, two people meet in a bar at a
I love
Sunday
that.
fun day.
I mean,
And
is Jonathan the bartender?
And it might be.
I hope Jonathan's the bartender. I feel like we're
It
friends now.
might be. Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Y'all have to come to San Francisco and come to some of the places.
I need to come out there so that, you can take me to happy hour. You
Yes.
just tell Jonathan to make me something sweet. I don't know what to order. I'm
Okay.
there.
He's a wonderful mixologist. And so yeah, so One and Done is about, two random people meet in a bar at a Sunday fun day. But it turns out that they did not know that they are working on a professional project together because of work. One's a tourist, a consultant. One works at a company in the city, and they don't realize, even though they kind of did not like each other in the first bar interaction, they end up having to work together on this project, and then the shenanigans continue from there.
Well, I can't wait. So you're turning that in
I'm turning that in July of
July.
2023.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be out at some point in either late spring or early summer 2024. So, of course, I'd be happy to come back and talk then
Please
too.
do. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, please plug all the places where people should be keeping up with you online. I mean, your Instagram, your photos are gorgeous. So
Oh,
plug all the
God.
places.
Stop.
That's
So,
why I was like, I need you in front of an ice cream truck.
okay. And create a very salacious author photograph of a popsicle. Anyway, so my Instagram and Twitter are the same. It's the letter F Smith 827. And you can find me there, or just look up Frederick Smith author and you can find me anywhere. And frederickLsmith.com is my website that connects to all my social media as well.
Okay. Well, I will have links to all the places where everyone can keep up with you online. Please come back. You're writing a book. We need to talk about it. I
Oh,
mean, you can come back and talk about whatever, okay? If there's a show you want us to watch to talk about it, you just tell me and I'll watch it, okay?
and I just want to tell you how much I love your podcast. I've been listening for a while. I love learning from all the authors you have on and the conversations you have. I really loved the Brazilian author you had on a few weeks ago. I'm like, he and I need to
Yay!
be friends.
Yes, right? I'm like, you need to come to the States. He needs to get his visa.
Yeah, yeah. We got to get him to the States so we can buy books and talk books and things like that.
Yay!